Hello, everybody, and welcome to day 3 of Raging Reveals, where every single day we're going to be going over the announcements counting up to the launch of Leagues 5 in just 2 weeks. Yesterday, we got to see Golden God, a new relic coming to Leagues 5, but today we've got some huge news to go over. And I really mean it. I think that this is the single biggest day of announcements we've ever had in a League cycle, because we're getting information on Echo Bosses, and not just one of the Echo Bosses, but all of the Echo Bosses, as well as all of the Echo rewards. So Jagex has been working with Skritic to drop this video, and it is a masterpiece. I mean, they just do a really great job of showing off all the new stuff coming to Leagues 5, and I definitely recommend you guys check that out first. They also go through all of the fundamentals of Leagues, so if you've never played Leagues and you want to know what all the hype is about, good place to start. So let's talk about Echo Bosses, the brand new feature coming to Leagues 5. These will be harder variants of existing bosses with better stats, but also more mechanics. In addition, you'll be getting brand new rewards from these Echo variants, with one Echo boss per region that will really make you think about where you're choosing to go. The desert will have the Echo Kalphite Queen, and the reward is the Drygor Blowpipe, which, as you might guess, is a fast ranged weapon that will be using darts. Asgarnia will have Echo Cerberus, and this will reward you with the Dog Sword, a brand new weapon that will combine the special attacks of all of the God Swords. Wilderness will have the Echo King Black Dragon, and this will give you the Thunder Khopesh and the Thousand Dragon Ward. The Khopesh has a chance to deal AoE damage with a lightning bolt, as well as a special attack that's very similar to the Voidwaker. And the Thousand Dragon Ward will give you immunity to pretty much every status in the game. Morytania will have the Echo Grotesque Guardians, and these will reward you with the Gloves of the Damned, which will boost the set effect of the Barrows brothers. Fremennik will have you taking on the Echo Dagonoth Kings, and you'll be rewarded with the Amulet of the Monarchs, as well as the Emperor Ring, two brand new best-in-slot jewelry pieces for Leagues 5. In Kandarin, you'll be taking on Echo Thermy, and this will award you with the Devil's Element, a new offhand that will double the effect of elemental weaknesses. Tirannwn will have you take on the Echo Hunllef. This will grant you the Crystal Blessing, which has a prayer bonus, but more importantly, allows you to use the Crystal Armor set with any melee weapon in the game. Kourend will have you take on Echo Hespori, and this will drop Nature's Reprisal, a multi-style weapon, kind of like a salamander, that will allow you to attack from range even when you're doing melee. Finally, Varlamore will have you facing Echo Soul Heredit, and this will drop the Sunlight Spear and the Sunlit Bracers. Attacking with the Sunlight Spear will give you stacks that you can spend on your special attack to deal an AoE damage that also scales with your prayer bonus. And the Sunlit Bracers will increase healing you receive by 100%, along with having some pretty respectable stats on their own. So now that we've seen all of the effects, we also have some of the stats, so we can kind of talk about them a little bit more. The Drygor Blowpipe, which comes from the Kalphite Queen, is basically just looks like a better version of the Toxic Blowpipe. It has more attack, and in addition to that, it also rolls for accuracy twice, very much like the Osmumtum's Fang from TOA. Blowpipe has always been good in places where monsters have low defense, and now that this thing has way higher accuracy and rolls twice, this is going to mean that Blowpipe is going to be very good. Like, this Drygor Blowpipe is going to go nuts, and I think you're going to use it in a lot of content. Remember that these items are supposed to be basically best in slot, just under the mega rares, so the Twisted Bow, the Scythe, and the Shadow. And I think especially for range, Twisted Bow just isn't always the best option, so this item I think is going to go absolutely nuts. And of course, darts already come from the desert, so this kind of naturally solves that problem. You'll already be able to create darts by having access to the desert to kind of fuel the blowpipe. Now, in Asgarnia, we talked about Cerberus and the Dog Sword. I'm going to be honest that this is so hard for me because I actually feel like I need to pick Asgarnia and just use this item to feel how good it must be to like use all the special attacks. It's kind of hard for me right now to even imagine what that's like, but man, that sounds like a lot of fun. Especially with any kind of special attack relic, I really feel like the Dog Sword just is so much fun to use. I also wanted to point out that in the announcement video, they've talked about how once you unlock Echo Cerberus, you will no longer need a Slayer task to actually go and fight them. And while this isn't 100% confirmed, this kind of makes me think that you also won't need to compete with other people to actually have access to Cerberus. That's something that in most of the seasonal modes has been kind of annoying with things like Cerberus and Thermy, is that there's only so many limited rooms that have access to it. So now once you unlock the Echo version, you'll just be able to fight them. And remember that once you've gotten the orb, you'll have permanent access to the Echo variants. Okay, next up with the Wildy, we've got the King Black Dragon, which will drop the Thunder Khopesh. Or Kofesh, I don't know. As well as the 1,000 Dragon Wards. So yeah, they're kind of making the Wildy pretty cracked here by giving 2 Echo drops. So first off, this weapon is just really damn good. It has a lot of melee strength and a lot of accuracy, even more than like the Rapier or the Blade of Saildor. It is a good one-hander. I also want to point out that it has an attack rate of 4, which to me kind of suggests that we might not be getting the double attack speed relics back, as that would make 5-tick weapons just way better than 4-tick weapons and kind of make this thing not as good. But again, I have no idea yet. Maybe there's something crazy cooking that I just don't see, but I kind of wanted to point that out as I saw it. Now, the special attack, I said it was kind of like the Void Waker, but really it's pretty damn cool. It actually attacks twice with the special attack, and if either one of the attacks is successful, then you get an additional lightning bolt, which also rolls up to 100% of its max hit. So theoretically, I think you could special attack and actually get like 3 attacks off. Probably going to be really fun to go PK somebody and just completely nuke them out of orbit. I also wonder if that special attack is AoE, as remember there's a 20% chance to trigger the AoE lightning bolt, which will also deal 3x3 damage. This is going to help a lot if you have access to tasks that are traditionally done with bursting and barraging or chinning or Venator bow. Well, this gives melee a bit of that like AoE option when you're grinding out your Slayer. And it also does deal full damage to the Corp Beast as well, which is a huge benefit to people who are in the Wildy and kind of need a weapon to like not suffer through those tasks. In addition, you will get the 1,000 Dragon Ward. Once again, I kind of want to talk about the stats here because they are really damn strong. The melee strength and the attack bonuses are better than an Avernic Defender, and the defense is still really good. It's not quite as good as like a Dragonfire Shield, but I mean, that's a lot of defense that you're adding. More importantly, though, that special effect kind of harkens back to the melee relic from Leagues 4. Gives you immunity to poison, venom, dragonfire, icy breath, Mortmire decay, disease, basically any negative status effect this should give you immunity to. I was really hoping for like a 2-handed meta in Leagues 5, but honestly, after seeing this, I'm actually so excited because I feel like this actually makes Asgarnia not as important if you're going for melee, now that you can go for the 1,000 Dragon Ward instead and get that offhand. And I think that the Thunder Khopesh also is just really strong. So combining these two in the Wildy, man, I don't know. I feel like Wildy's going to be pretty damn crowded now. So listen, if you're interested in DMM and you want to go PK some people, you might have a lot of fun this Leagues just going and using this to like, fight all the people, because I feel like there's going to be a lot of people going for Wildy after seeing these new items. Okay, next up, we got Morytania, the Grotesque Guardians. Just like with Cerberus, you won't actually need a Slayer task to fight these guys once you've actually gotten the orb and then unlocked the boss. Now, the stats are equivalent to the Barrow's gloves, kind of makes sense, but in a more thematic sense, it will also count as wearing an Amulet of Damned and double the effect of all the Barrow set effects and the Amulet of the Damned additions. This makes all of the Barrow armor sets incredibly versatile. You'll have Arims for mage, Carols for range, and then 4 different melee sets that you can use. I know a lot of people love Asgarnia and have also been looking at Varlamore because of how easy it is to get access to so many different pieces of gear for all of the different combat styles. And I feel like now Morytania is by far the strongest because you have so many different armor sets that you'll be playing around with, and getting double the effect is not something that can be undersold. I mean, they showed it off in the video, but this means that Darox, you'll be getting like 196% more damage when you're at 1 HP. That's pretty crazy. I know that personally, I'm really excited to play around with Guthans, which I think will go from a 25% chance of healing to 50% chance of healing. and I love kind of the lifesteal effect. Man, Morytania is looking a lot of fun right now. I had it really ranked high on my tier list, and I'm starting to really feel like it's pushing that #1 spot for me. I also think that the Amulet of Damned effect is pretty cool. I feel like nobody ever uses that, so you'll get some pretty cool stuff. Like, I think like Verax is a 7 additional prayer bonus, and then that will double to 14, which is like, that's a lot of prayer bonus for Verax set. Or like Guthan's allows you to heal up to 10 hit points above max, so now you'll be able to overheal to, I guess, 119. Like that's really good. The Arim's Ancient of the Damned effect allows you to autocast ancient magics, and it gives you a 25% chance of your combat spells dealing 30% more damage. I think that this is insane. I feel like if you have ancient magics from the desert and then you go to Morytania, which has always been seen as a pretty weak mage option, now you'll have the arm set and you'll just be destroying monsters with ancient magics. Like, it is going to feel insane. I really feel like there's so much more to kind of theory craft in regards to the Barrow sets and with all these set effects. But yeah, guys, I feel like Morytania right now is looking to be insane. Like, I think this is just a crazy region. This is such a cool effect. I don't know how I didn't even think about this, because this feels like so obvious and just so cool in kind of retrospect. All right, next up we've got Fremennik with the Dagannoth Kings. We kind of saw this teased before, so it's kind of cool to see it announced. I just want to kind of reiterate that we don't know the mechanics of the bosses yet, but there are, in addition to, you know, higher stats, there are going to be new mechanics with these fights as well. So it is going to feel a pretty fresh experience that is notably harder than the original kind of variants. And they will also retain their same drop table from the normal variant. So if you're, for whatever reason, maybe you're looking for like a Dragon Axe from the Dagannoth Kings, you can also get that by taking on the Echo version as well. Obviously, it's going to be a harder challenge, but honestly, some of these bosses die so fast, I think the harder challenge was actually going to be more fun to do in leagues when you're farming these bosses like hundreds of times. And I mean, just looking at these two jewelry pieces, they are insanely busted. Like, they are so good. It is crazy to look at this. Like, 10% magic damage on the necklace is crazy. 5% on the ring is insane. Like, that, again, that's like a cult before the nerf. Man, this is huge. I feel like right now, if magic ends up being like a viable route or something like that, now I feel like you almost have to go Fremennik, because these two items are insane. But even outside of magic, the range strength is nuts on this thing. I mean, like, just look at it. 15 range strength from both of these. That's insanity. Like, that's insanity. I mean, you can compare this to literally any other piece of jewelry in the entire game, and this thing blows it away by miles, and it's for all 3 styles. I don't know. This thing is nuts. I feel like Fremennik right now is so good for literally everybody, because you're getting this for all 3 styles. It is so good. And even if combat styles aren't a thing, which honestly right now, I don't think there are going to be combat styles because of how flexible this stuff is, but I feel like even if you don't specialize in a certain combat style, it's also really important to kind of buff up your off styles as well for any time you're doing off style combat. And items like this that are just universally good for everybody, I mean, they're gonna be in so demand. So I almost want to say like Fremennik is like impossible to pass up right now. It's like a top. I'm probably gonna say that about every region, so I'm trying to like level myself right now. But like, man, this stuff looks so good for everybody. The prayer bonus is nuts. Attack and defense. I mean, look at this defense on jewelry. This is insanity. Like, you're going to be so tanky with this. That's crazy. Nothing even comes close to these items. It is so... I gotta stop, man, all right? Fremennik has vindicated so hard this year. And I've gone to it in the past. I don't know. Maybe I'm going to go back again. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about Kandarin with the Thermonuclear Smoke Devil. Again, like Cerberus, once you've unlocked this, you won't need the Slayer task, and I'm hoping it will also be a separate instance, so you won't be competing with other players. And this is probably the hardest echo weapon to rate, in my opinion, and probably the one that I almost would have to spend the most amount of time thinking about, the Devil's Element. Now, before I begin, I also want to say that it's really cool to have like an offhand mage that's not like a shield. It kind of reminds me of different MMOs where you're using like a little lantern or things like that. I don't know. I like the idea of the Devil's Element a lot. It also has a high magic strength, which is very good. But the special effect is the one that probably requires the most planning, because it is going to make it so that elemental effects exploit an NPC's weakness at twice the effect, basically. And it also provides unlimited runes, but I mean, that's not that important. So here's the thing. I think it's going to be very strong if you're able to actually, I guess, utilize this effect and actually fight things that do have NPC or elemental weaknesses. And there are a lot of bosses that do have elemental weaknesses, especially since, depending on how you play in your region, you could kind of get this effect a lot of the time. I guess my issue is only that it doesn't always get the benefit of it. So I kind of worry you might kind of have to really think about your regions and what bosses you're going to be doing. Now, one thing I did notice is that Cerberus, as well as a King Black Dragon, they both have elemental weaknesses attached to them. So if you do go for Asgarnia and the Wildy, that's going to be like a natural point of benefit where you'll be able to use this on the Echo versions, which are going to be harder than the normal versions, obviously. I think this is going to be interesting with Morytania as well, because you'll be able to use this for Araxor. Barrow's brothers will get absolutely eviscerated with this thing. I mean, you'll be one-shotting them probably. But the reason I bring up Morytania is because I think that combining this with the Nightmare Staff, the Harm Staff, that will surely just be really, really powerful. But again, only if you're actually able to use the elemental weaknesses. So I'm kind of worried right now with this thing, even though I do think it will be strong if you do the right planning. I kind of worry that you might fall into a trap where you take it, and then there's some bosses that don't have elemental weaknesses, and it just feels like you're doing no damage with this item. Now, don't forget, you still have access to the shadow and stuff like that. Obviously, you don't want to be relying on the shadow, but I feel like it's going to have a lot of cool use cases. I don't know. I think this thing is going to be really cool to use when you can exploit the weakness. It kind of really makes me feel like we have to see the rest of the relics and the rest of the combat masteries for this, mainly to see how good a hybrid style feels, where you can rely on other combat options and you're not, I guess, locked into mage. Because I do worry that if you're completely locked into mage, this item might not be the best. I will say, though, that I feel like even if we do have specialized combat styles, this might actually be good if you're not specialized in magic. So, for example, let's say you're going, Tirannwn, and you're going melee or something like that. Well, maybe that this gives you enough magic damage that you can exploit Zulrah's fire damage and just kind of nuke Zulrah anyways. I think I just got to let this one cook a little bit and really plan it out. It's not as universally good as some of the other ones I've seen so far. Okay, Tirannwn, the Hunllef. So we've got the Crystal Blessing, which gives you 5 prayer. That's best in slot, basically. But really, the special effect is getting the crystal armor bonus for accuracy and damage to all melee weapons. So basically, this means 15% damage and 30% accuracy when you're using the crystal set. Tirannwn has always been seen as a very bad pick if you like to go for a melee setup, but now you're getting a really powerful armor set. I mean, 15% damage and 30% accuracy is quite a bit for something like the Scythe, for something like the Khopesh from the Wildy. Now, this might not pair great with things like Morytania, because you're probably going to want to be using the Barrow set if you're in Morytania. But I do think that the way it's read is you don't have to necessarily have all 3 of the crystal sets. If you drop the helmet, it's not the end of the world. You're still getting the benefit from the body and the legs. But I think generally you're going to want to use this, and it is quite a bit of accuracy and damage. Tirannwn still kind of struggles with things like Zulrah. You can't even do that with melee. But, I mean, this will still be a good pull, and you can probably cover that weakness with other things. I also want to talk about the Crystal Hunllef and what this means for Corrupted Gauntlet. Now, you will have to do Corrupted Gauntlet to get the orb and unlock the Echo variant, but once you have access to Echo Hunllef, you will no longer need to do the prep phase of Corrupted Gauntlet. This is possibly the coolest thing about this boss, honestly. When you've been doing Corrupted Gauntlet in Tirannwn, it can get a little bit annoying going through that prep phase, even with relics that buff that up. And I think being able to skip straight to the boss is such a brilliant addition. I am so impressed at how they've managed to take so many of the bosses that had annoying features to them, such as having Slayer levels, such as having non-instance rooms, so public rooms. And then in this case, they're actually taking away the necessity to do all that prep phase. You'll just have to fight a harder version of the boss. And I think pretty much everybody in leagues would rather just do a harder version of Hunllef than have to spend those minutes prepping for Hunllef. It's an amazing addition. I think this just makes Tirannwn better as a whole, just not having to do prep phase at all. And then the item, of course, adds that extra draw for a melee setup. Okay, in Kourend, we have Echo Hespori and Nature's Reprisal. Now, you might be wondering for Hespori, which is traditionally done as a farming boss. You have to plant the seed, let it grow, and then challenge Hespori. First time you kill Hespori, you'll actually be guaranteed the Echo drop, and this will permanently unlock an Echo version of Hespori that does not require you to plant any more seeds. Just like skipping the prep phase of Hunllef, this is such a brilliant addition to Kourend, as having to constantly deal with your Hespori cycles, having to plant more of them, and not being able to like get the bottomless compost bucket until you get the drop, which is kind of time gated. Solving that problem with just an Echo version of the boss as soon as you've killed it once is really damn cool. Now, the weapon itself is the Super Salamander that so many people have been hoping for. It uses all 3 combat styles. And, like, it's pretty good, honestly. It's 5 attack rate. It's got pretty high melee strength. The magic strength on it is fine, too. Do I think this thing is, like, best in slot? Probably not. But the fact that it's all 3 combat styles is really, really cool. I know for me, this item looks like a lot of fun to use in raids just because it's probably strong enough to carry you through any raid room. And I think that that's always been some of the hardest part of the raids is when, you know, you're fighting the wardens and your range like sucks and you're like taking, you know, forever to kill them. And now, you know, as long as you have access to Zaya, you'll get the Nature's Reprisal and you have just like an Omni tool that would be really beneficial for all 3 combat styles. In addition to Zaya also having Chambers of Zarek, this kind of works really well. And I really do think that if you are kind of like a newer player and you're not comfortable with the raids and you want to challenge yourself, this could be a really cool way of actually kind of getting into them. In addition, I really want to talk about the fact that the melee version of this salamander will still attack from range. I have been dreaming about, you know, a magic sword that allows you to attack from far away. And like my prayers have finally been answered with this weapon. It's why I'm so much I'm looking forward to this so much right now because of the fact that it will allow you to, like, for example, like let's say you have, you know, a melee setup. Well, now you can fight things like Zulrah or Kriara, or you can just safe spot things with like training your melee. Like, I don't know, there's just so much cool stuff you can do with like a melee weapon that attacks at range. It's so much like, it's so cool. I love this thing so much. I want this thing so bad right now. I talked about how I think like Fremennik is like almost required, and now I'm like really I feel like Zaya is so high up there for me right now as well. It's already one of the best regions, and I think that this weapon is just so cool. So if you guys were expecting like a very reasoned approach to this video where I have everything set up in like a tier, I'll try at the end, but man, I'm gonna have a lot of conflicting thoughts about this over the next couple of days. Okay, finally, we've got Varlamore, and this one is kind of a shocker, I think, to everybody. We have Soul Heredit as the Echo boss. This is already pretty much the hardest challenge in the entire game, and they're adding a hard mode version of it. I don't know what they were cooking with this one, and we don't know the mechanics of the fights yet, but that alone is almost enough for me to pick Varlamore, literally just to see the new challenge and to have fun fighting against it. I can't even imagine what happens in the room. Now, just like with Kourend, where you get the guaranteed orb from your first Hespori, you'll actually get the guaranteed Echo orb from your first Soul Heredit kill as well. And once you unlock the Echo boss, you'll no longer be required to do the waves to actually fight Soul Heredit, or the Echo variant, basically. I am really excited about that. Soul Heredit is literally my favorite fight in the entire game. He is so much fun to do, and I think just being able to fight this guy on repeat like hundreds of times without having to do all the waves beforehand is going to be a lot of fun. Now we have the Sunlight Spear and the Sunlit Bracers as rewards. The Sunlight Spear is a two-handed weapon, although visually it's going to look like you're one-handing a spear and the shield in the other one, but you won't be able to use an offhand with this. It is like a two-part component. Already has excellent stats on it. Pretty high stab bonus, a very good melee strength bonus, and the defense bonus is nothing to scoff at either. The Noxious Halberd, which I think is like the closest comparison I could make here, is a little bit stronger. It has a bit more melee strength, but the Sunlight Spear also has a special attack, and I think that's going to be where it makes up that point. I mean, it also has the defense bonus, which is pretty huge too. So every time you attack with a spear, you'll get a stack, and then you'll be able to expend those sunlight stacks to do a big AoE damage. It's actually increased by 3% per prayer bonus. I don't know how much the special attack does by itself, so it's kind of hard right now to predict exactly how much it does with the prayer bonus. Obviously, we don't know all that stuff yet, but it is really cool to know that this kind of implies that it's not going to be taking up any of your special attack, which means you might be able to use other special attacks along with it. Kind of like how with the Soul Reaper axe, the special attack changes to use all the stacks, but then you can still swap to like a BGS or whatever and get the effects there. Overall, though, this reminds me a lot of the Killstreak relic that I imagine, where you're, constantly attacking a mob, stacking up, and then, at 20 maximum stacks, that means you'll be able to do 2 special attacks, attack one more time, and do another special attack. That's 3 basically back-to-back special attacks, and those will all do a lot of damage. I really like the prayer bonus effect too, because it's going to make you actually think about what kind of gear you're using that has prayer bonus. Obviously, the prayer set from the Colosseum is going to naturally pair really well with this, but I could really see you going for a couple of other ideas as well to try to think about, how can I really optimize my prayer bonus to do a lot of damage with the special attack. The Fremennik amulets, they gave you 10 prayer bonus each. Verax in Morytania gives a lot of prayer bonus. Like, there's a lot of really cool options here, and I hope that this really makes you kind of consider your gear in a way that's more than just, attack and defense stats. Now, the Sunlit Bracers are also really cool. I think that the glove slot in Leagues is pretty weak because you're not able to complete Recipe for Disaster and get the Barrows gloves. And like the Ferocious gloves can be a little bit difficult. You need like Fremennik and Zaya for them. And in addition, this also has 4 range strength, which is 2 higher than the Zerite Van Braces. So this is basically best in slot ranged gloves as well. Stats are good, but the special effect, all healing received, is increased by 100%. That to me is awesome. Like, that is really cool. So we already know that this is going to include things like sharks and Ceradomin brews. And this is going to make a lot of PVM in Leagues a lot easier because you're going to have so much efficiency from the food in your inventory. Now, I would say that this lowers the skill floor for a lot of PVM challenges, but the fact that you get this from arguably the hardest challenge in the game kind of means that it's not really that relevant, but still, I think this will be really cool and a very fun object to get if you can get your hands on it. Obviously, it does feel like this will be quite a challenge to actually get from Sol, though. I also really hope that this works with lifesteal effects as well. Pairing this with either a lifesteal relic or pairing this with, Amulet of Blood Fury over in Morytania, getting twice that effect is going to feel really damn good. Sadly, I don't think you can pair this with the Guthan set with the Morytania because you'll be competing with the same glove slot, the Sunlit Bracers and the Gloves of the Damned from the Morytania Echo Boss. But I love lifesteal effects in general. I think that they make the whole game really cozy and really fun to use. And listen, if I can find any way to make it work, I would definitely love to get this item because it feels really damn cool. I'm also really excited to combo eat with this or something. Use like a shark and a Karambwan and like instantly heal yourself to like 99. Like, I don't know. I feel like you can do some really cool stuff with this. Like, I feel like in Wieldy, this might be a lot of fun to use, or you're just like, somebody's PKing you and you just heal yourself up to full. Like, I don't know. The implications here are really cool. Okay, and with that, I think we've just about covered every single region, and I've kind of shared my first thoughts on them. I am positive that my opinions of the regions will change quite drastically in the coming days. Someone already made like an Echo items tier list, so I'm just going to use this real quick just to kind of share my initial thoughts on where I put things. Fremennik's going S tier for me. I think that's the Amulet and Ring are just insane. Desert with the Drygor Blowpipe is also probably going into S tier for me. Again, I'm just kind of rating the items right now as my first impressions. I think the higher accuracy on this and the double accuracy is going to make the Blowpipe an insanely good ranged weapon. Yeah, I'm just so excited to be using this. I think Hespori is going to go into, I want to say A tier right now. I like the all-around purpose of this weapon, and I feel like it's going to just be handy for a lot of people. I think Asgarnia with the dog sword is probably B. I just don't really know how good that weapon is going to feel. I mean, I feel like the special attack should be pretty busted, but also kind of depends on a special attack relic coming out or anything that can make your special attack a little faster. Morytania with the Barrow set is probably also going to be A tier for me. I like how versatile it is and how you can pretty much enable any kind of combat style. So, you know, I rate that pretty high. Wilderness with the KBD is probably also A tier for me. I think I might even put it here because I really, really like the weapon. And like the weapon's so strong. And I think the shield is really good too for the immunity. And I think that shield is just going to come in handy in a lot of places too. I also really like how it removes the necessity of Asgarnia in order to get defenders. It kind of puts a good offhand somewhere else. Thermy is probably C tier for me with consideration. I just feel like this is the one that I need to think about the most, and I don't know exactly how it will pan out. Elemental weaknesses being restricted to certain bosses makes me a little bit less impressed with this, just because it's not universal like something like Fremennik or something like the shield. The fact that this kind of requires certain bosses to get any effect from it puts it down in value for me. I still think it could be good. It's not a bad item, and it's not like you only have to pick one. Again, you're picking 3 of these, so it might still be good. I just think that on its own right now, it's probably the lowest. Tirannwn is probably going to be a high B tier for me. I really do like this. I just don't know if it's quite enough to sell me on going for Tirannwn, whereas some of these other regions I am just immediately drawn to. And I think that Varlamore is going to be kind of at the like bottom of A tier for me, just because it's a cool weapon and I really like it. I just feel like you're going to get access to this a lot later than some of the other ones. Like, I imagine Echo Soul Heredit will be a lot harder than like Echo Kalphite Queen. Obviously we don't know for sure yet, but it's a cool weapon. I just feel like I might kind of outgrow the use of it by then, and I would have to see how strong that special attack is before I really can make I guess any more further analysis on it. The bracers are pretty damn cool, though. I do like those bracers, man. But yeah, those are just my initial thoughts. I'm pretty sure that by the time this video gets posted, I have already like flipped my opinion on a couple things. But I really feel like those first initial thoughts are fun. And I also want to kind of open up the room for you guys to discuss it, for you guys to share your thoughts as well. So let me know kind of what you guys think. Let me know if I'm completely off base. Maybe I'm missing something because I really haven't been looking into too much information yet. I've just been kind of going off my own instincts. Most importantly, let me know if this is changing your regions that you're picking, because I really do feel, like I said in the beginning of the video, this is the biggest announcement we've gotten in one day that just absolutely shatters any idea of what people had for their regions. I really feel like they've just nailed it on the head with a lot of these, where it just opens up so many more regions and supplements a lot of the missing pieces that those regions lacked. I really can't wait to fight some of these bosses. I feel like, honestly, Corrupted Gauntlet without having to do prep is just awesome. I don't even know what to expect from Empowered Soul. And like King Black Dragon, man, that guy has no mechanics at all. So it's like a clean slate of what they could add to that fight. I've been gushing about this long enough. I'm probably going to make more videos on Echo bosses because this really is my favorite part of Leagues 5. And man, I was not expecting to get this much information today. Thank you guys so much for watching. So much more content coming up in the next days. It's kind of crazy to think that tomorrow we'll have another reveal to go over, and I just can't wait to talk about this in the comments some more and see what other people think. Have a good one, and I'll see you guys in the next video.